Hello, everybody. Welcome to Commodity Culture, where our goal is to make you a better investor in the commodities sector. My name is Jesse Day. Before we dive in, standard disclaimer, nothing here is investment advice. Do your own due diligence. And today's guest is the CEO of Kootenay Silver, an exploration company actively engaged in the discovery and development of mineral projects in the Sierra Madre region of Mexico. It's James McDonald. Great to have you on the show.
Hi, Jesse. Great to be here.
Yes, I'm excited to have you and to dive into the silver market, which is potentially the most popular topic on this channel. So let's start off with the broad picture. What do you currently view as the main macro factors driving the silver market today?
Well, there are a lot to do with the fiat currency and how our central bankers and governments have treated that currency over the last, well, since 1971. But particularly in more modern times, the last 25 years have been absolutely incredible. Just look at a gold chart. And it was pretty flat through the 90s. And then in the early 2000s, it broke out, and it's been like on a trajectory like that. It's not stopping. It's not stopping because the government debt's not stopping. The cheap money's not stopping. The money printing's not stopping. And now they've got themselves in a trap. And silver goes as gold goes. And that's what's happening. That's what we see.
Now, silver has come close to $40 recently and has been putting in a very solid performance, recently reaching 14-year highs. What do you make of silver's price action so far this year? Because we hear a lot of talk of triple-digit silver up ahead. And if we look at it on an inflation-adjusted picture, the previous highs in 2011, we would need triple-digit silver to even get back to that point. Wonder what your thoughts are there.
Yeah, well, I think it seems more and more likely we're going to see that. And even 2-3 years ago, it seemed almost outlandish to think it. But here we are, and we've believed for a long time that we're going to see the real strong silver market coming. We saw the bottom break, we believed, was in 2020. And it's been a long, slow climb for silver. Gold has been much, much stronger, of course, but now silver's catching up. And our belief is that silver is going to go through that old high, inflation unadjusted. And then after it does that, it's going to make new highs. And it probably will break as you mentioned, the inflation adjusted high of the previous bull run that we had. And that's what we see coming. As gold goes, silver goes, and silver's going now. It's very definitively broken out to the next level. Really wants to go through 40, and after that, it could be pretty darn fast before it challenges fast when it challenges 50 again.
And do you think this time around we could see a longer, more sustained high in the silver price? Because if we go back to the last two highs, 2011 and 1980, they were both fairly short-lived spikes. Now, in 1980, we had the Hunt brothers silver squeeze, for those who are aware of that historic event. So perhaps some might say, well, that wasn't a real all-time high because it was, circumstances that weren't natural. I mean, which markets are natural? Who knows? But people will say that. Do you think we could see more of a sustained rise in the silver price as opposed to the massive spike and then drop back down that we saw in 1980 and 2011?
Well, I think the charts really suggest that if you look at the buildup of the silver price here and the gradual climb. And when you look at that 2011 high, I mean, it extended into 2014, more or less, although it had broken the shoulder and was on the downside of the bull run. But that started in around 2002, that particular run. In 2002, I'd have to go back and see what the exact numbers were, but just for recollection, I know they were under $4, like $3.80. And so you really had a 10-year bull market in silver. It was very slow at first and then very explosive towards the end. And so we're seeing a really long build now, and really about a 9-year build here. Maybe you could argue 10-year build on that silver price. The bottoming going definitely from sort of 2016 until 2020, and then sideways from 2020 till just recently. It was in a band of kind of $16 to $22 silver for the longest time. In the last couple of years, sort of an $18 to $22 band, and now it's really decisively broken out, and we're definitely in a new territory here.
Well, in March of this year, we saw a billionaire named David Bateman purchase over 12 million ounces of silver and stand for delivery. He's been posting since then on X about both his silver purchase and his thoughts on the silver market and why he chose to make that move. I've heard other anecdotes about wealthy individuals as well as funds, enterprises, taking possession of large amounts of physical silver as well, standing for delivery. What are your thoughts, and do you think we could see more big money get attracted to the physical silver space?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's more big money. There's big money coming in right now, and you're starting to see lots of financings done in our sector. We just did one a few weeks ago at the end of June, bought deal financing that got upsized very, very quickly. Appetite was real big, multiples of what we ended up doing, in fact. And now you're seeing that practically every week in the silver sector for the miners or for companies like us that are more advanced explorers with assets in the ground, resources in the ground. So that money's definitely coming in. Those are big signals. Another signal that I think has importance, and I'm not sure to what extent it really impacts or plays things out, but when silver broke out last October and was chasing $35 an ounce briefly there, that was after Russia announced that their central bank was starting to accumulate silver bullion. So that's a big shift. I mean, that's a big signal. People always like to look back and say, well, where was the bell rung? Well, usually it's never rung, but that's certainly one of the warning signs, I think, of it taking off. So these things are all cumulative together, and trying to get physical bullion, it's not that easy, especially in any quantity. It's not that easy. So there is a real tightness of supply that's helping drive this, no doubt.
Let's talk about the silver mining sector for a moment here, because it's quietly been putting in quite a strong performance. Year to date, we've seen the SIL ETF. That's a basket of silver miners, for those who don't know. It has greatly outperformed both gold and silver, along with crushing the broad market and matching the GDX, which is a gold miner ETF. SILJ, a basket of the juniors, is also putting in an equally strong performance. What is this telling you about the silver mining sector right now?
Well, finally, it's getting recognition, and that big money that you mentioned earlier is coming in. I don't think there's any doubt to that. And this just follows the pattern of every other bull market that we've seen. This is how they start. Start to begin to be recognized. They start to see value. Even now, after all these gains, the valuations are actually really low, incredibly low in many cases.
So a lot of room to run here. I think that's a perfect segue into discussing Kootenay Silver. Why don't you start by giving us an overview of the company?
Yeah, Kootenay Silver. We started Kootenay Silver way back in 2005 as an explorer, as a prospect venture, and took it public that year, and then very quickly started into Mexico, looking to discover precious metal deposits, and we started finding silver deposits. And we've been very successful at doing that. We've found 4 now. Our most recent discovery, we just put out a maiden resource on just a couple months ago now. 54 million ounces inferred and wide open. This out of 4 discoveries, this is the best one to date because of the grade we're seeing. And the upside equals any of the other projects easily. I mean, we see 100 million ounce upside on this project. And so we've built a team around Kootenay Silver over the last 20 years, in fact, and we have a staff in Mexico. All our geologists, except one's in Mexico, is now the single geologist who's not. It's an Argentine who's married a Mexican and moved there quite a long time ago. And so we've got a great team on the ground. Our board of directors and management team, we've put mines into production. Ken Berry most recently put an open pit gold mine into production in Arizona about 8 years ago. Myself, I was one of the founders of the original founding companies of what became Alamos Gold, when we bought an out-of-the-money gold deposit at the bottom of the gold market in 2000. That was the Mulatos deposit in Mexico that's still operating for that company today. And that was my introduction also to Mexico and the incredible upside for discovery that occurs in Mexico. And our Columba discovery is a good example of that. It had 2 periods of mining historically, but had never been drilled. And when we picked up an option to earn 100%, it never even been worked on in almost 40 years. Now we own 100%. So this new discovery gives us a total of 214 million ounces of silver equivalent in the measured indicated category, and another 109 million in the inferred category with the new maiden resource out in the 4 deposits. And so we're well versed in Mexico, been there a long time, have been very successful in making discoveries. And now with this most recent discovery, Columba, we're very, very focused on growing the size of that. And that's what our recent $20 million financing is for. It's to continue drilling and increasing the size of that discovery on our way to our objective of making it 100 million ounces or greater.
Well, let's talk about that financing for a moment. You touched on it earlier, $20 million. What were you seeking to raise? You said it was oversubscribed. And dive into some more details on your plans for that capital at the Columba project.
Yeah, so we started, I think it was 12, and then upsized it to 17.5 with a green shoe, and the whole green shoe was taken. And the reason we're raising that money, besides the general working capital, which you don't need that much money for, obviously, was to go back and continue drilling on the back of our maiden resource. And the resource we put out, all of the zones that we have defining that resource are still open. We haven't found the edges of them. Plus, we've got multiple other targets there to drill, multiple other veins to go drilling. So that's the real focus. And we've restarted the drilling now. And so you're going to see the next sort of 8 to 10 months just steady drilling and drill results coming out. And then at an appropriate time, we'll be in a position to do a resource update, which we hope to be quite significant. If we're really lucky, it could get us to the goal we're chasing just on the next update. But let's see what the results are and what we get. So a lot of low-hanging fruit here initially too, Jesse, on this current program, because we're just going into the existing zones and expanding on them, because they're wide open. And so what we call lots of low-hanging fruit. So roughly the first 25,000 to 30,000 meters is just going to go into existing zones where we don't know what the limits are, step off at regular intervals, roughly speaking 100-meter step-outs till we find the edges, and then move on to the next targets.
Walk us through the details of the recently completed 43-101 technical report at Columba. And obviously, you're talking about recommencing drilling activities there. You have started that. Just any other details you're able to share about the drill program and the results of the technical report?
Yeah, so the report itself was 54.1 million ounces of the inferred out of several veins, but mostly 3 veins. And one in particular we call the D vein. It's a classic Mexican vein system. And these vein systems will typically have some key structures. It could be 1, 2, 3, or just a few key structures that hold the majority of your ounces. And our D vein is one of those zones for us, because it holds 60% of the ounces in our inferred resource. So it's a real key zone. And the average of all of the different veins that make up this calculation, the average grade is 284 grams. So we've got 54.1 million ounces inferred silver at 284 grams per ton. And we used a very reasonable and in fact realistic mining cutoff for veins in Mexico of 150 grams per ton and a silver price of $26. So we came out with this. We didn't try to stretch it beyond where it should be. We think it's a very solid and in some respects it's very realistic and conservative estimate. And so we're really excited to have put that out. And then the drilling program is going to go into, as I mentioned, into focusing on first finding the limits of the current resource bodies we have, and then secondly moving on to our next priority targets. And you go on our website, you can look in our presentation. We have one map there that shows veins color coded as to the very high priority, high, medium, and low, and we'll go in that order. And so that's already underway, and so we'll start putting results out in the next several months. It'll be drilling and results.
And outside of the Columba project, is there any other projects that are worth touching on, and any future plans for those as well?
Yeah, so we've got 3 other deposits, Promontorio and La Negra, which are 2 deposits on the same project, and then another one called La Ciguera. Out of those, at these kind of silver prices on a paper financial model, La Ciguera starts to look pretty darn interesting. So we're just going to do some internal scoping of that. We want to get a sense of at what silver price, and maybe we're at that price now, we don't know, should we push that project towards a preliminary economic assessment? Because it's looking, it looks pretty exciting. It's a open pit constrained resource at 102 grams in a district that's produced over 500 million ounces of silver historically, and they're mining at 2,000 meter depth, 40 kilometers to the south of us. And this resource sits right at surface. It begins right at surface. So tremendous potential there at La Ciguera. We really like the upside. And then similar to La Negra, which was a project that attracted Pan American when we discovered it. In fact, we had a JV where they were going to provide all the capital right into production and leave us with 25% operating interest. If La Negra on its own was 50 million ounces, it's not that big. It's just over half that size, but nice configuration for an open pit, low cost, high margin operation for a small operator. And then we got the big Promontorio, our original discovery, which is polymetallic silver deposit. We updated all of the 43-101 resource reports on all these 3 projects in the last 18 months or so. And just to position them to move ahead in some manner, whether it's us, a partner, or a sale, when we get further into a silver bull market. So we've got them parked and ready, while we're very focused on advancing that exciting new discovery at Columba.
Well, walk us through the main news flow and catalysts that shareholders can look forward to for the remainder of the year and into 2026.
Yeah, so come this fall, we're into the first weeks of August here. It'll probably be coming into, I'd say, in October sometime we should start to see assay results. And then every several weeks, we'll see more results coming out. And anybody who's followed us will already know, but we batch holes up together and put them out. And so it provides you with better context and meaning when you're putting several holes out at a time. And that's what you can expect to see. So batches of holes coming out every several weeks going forward, probably beginning in October with the first bunch of results coming out by about that time.
Great. And is there anything we haven't yet touched on when it comes to Kootenay Silver, or anything that you want to emphasize you think it's important for potential shareholders of the company to be aware of?
Well, I think we've touched on everything here. This district at Columba we're really excited about because it's entirely preserved from erosion, like geologically speaking. It really hasn't suffered any erosion. We could go into that, but that's kind of a separate topic. And what that means is that whatever was deposited here originally is still sitting here. And it's got the right geology to be something even much, much bigger than we're thinking. Some of the vein districts in Mexico get into the billions of ounces of silver. And more recent discoveries that are much, much more advanced than us, like at Panuco, are the size of 300 million ounces of silver equivalent. And our vein district as of that scale, so it certainly has those possibilities. And what we see geologically there makes us really excited about that sort of blue sky. The blue sky upside on this thing could be much, much bigger than we're projecting here initially. So really exciting. But now, I think a final statement, what's exciting, we've got the money to keep drilling. We don't have any overhang of pressure of needing financing. We've got enough money to do 50,000 meters of drilling. The first 25, 30,000 meters is just going after that low-hanging fruit of finding the edges of what we already know.
Fantastic. Well, I'm going to put a link in the description below to the Kootenay Silver website as well as social media for people who want to follow along with the company. James, this has been a great conversation. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Yeah, it was a pleasure being here. Thank you.
Commodity Culture is a series on commodities and natural resources. If you would like to see more, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification so you're always up to date with the latest episodes.